All right, this is the dev pop meeting with. You missed it. No. All right, so I think everyone got a link to that document, right? It was sent in the chats. So I think a better approach to learning game development is to do something, is to repeat with effort. What happened to Pete? Well, I guess he went away. And so that's what this whole thing is about. And then the other thing is to categorize gameplay elements slash features slash whatever. Basically, you should be able to break indie game down into different elements and then create the design patterns for those things. That way you can produce them in pretty much any game without having to do all the research every single time. Make sense? Joe? Is that alright? Does that make sense? Oh, barely heard you. Alright, so I created first few things because it's going to take a while to do it. The first one is you choose one game from the list under one, and then you break down all of its gameplay elements and describe them, and then you create a copy of that, but only for one level. But you're supposed to do it 5 times, so you should choose, after you're done with that one, then you choose a different game, and then a different game, and a different game, until you've done it 5 times. And this is starting over from scratch in whatever engine that you choose. And that means you have to keep using the same engine all the way through, otherwise you have to start all over. And the idea is to get so good at the engine that the engine's not going to be the barrier to you creating games. Right. And then it will pick into other things. The second part is going to be taking one of those games and just redoing the graphics. So you can get used to doing the next thing that's slightly more complicated. And then we'll just keep going up the list of the proficiencies, including UI and menu, and then story, sound effects, and music. This also includes taking on more advanced things. Notice that adventure is under 3, which means you don't get to that until after you've gotten good at level 1 games. And so things that are a little bit more advanced, like in an adventure game, you're going to have an inventory. That's a lot more advanced than anything that you're going to come across in simpler games. And then by the end of all this, everyone should be good at making games. You should be able to make decent games relatively quickly instead of trying to make the... By the time you're done with this, you should be able to make the game that you want to make instead of just making games to make games. Well, at least that's the goal. Instead of wasting time floundering about trying to come up with whole new things, this should help eliminate some of the curve, the steepness of the learning curve. it sounds like a stupid idea and we shouldn't do it. Alright. And then the other thing I wanted to do, which is something I wanted to do since that someone can just search for. And so, see, the end goal of this is to do a searchable library. So someone goes, I want to learn how to do a double jump, and a value for the complexity. Okay. And then just tags to make them more easily searchable. Well, these will be specific for video games. These are the things that you'll need to get done in whatever language using whatever tools. Right. And I was thinking of limiting things down to just starting out with just 2D. I don't know if we have to do that, but I think we should probably just limit to like 2D. And so, like if you're going to start with 1, it says choose one game from 1, so you have to choose any game that falls under these any game that falls under these genres. Flashback is like a platformer with an inventory system, so it's more like a platform adventure game. Yeah. And that's kind of why I want to grab games from classics, because most of the modern games are mixes. Like Contra would just be an action game. It has some platforming, but mostly it's action. Metroid would probably fall under action. It'd either be action or adventure. But it doesn't have too much of an actual inventory system. It's kind of just got like things get unlocked as they get collected. So it's not as complicated an inventory system, if you know what I mean. And if we're going to take an example, let's just take Super Mario Brothers. You're only supposed to do one level. You choose whichever level, so we'll just do level 1. And the things that you're going to need, you're going to need to collect coins. You're going to need to have mushrooms that make you grow. And you're going to have a flower that you get for power up the spit, or throw fire. We always call it spit because that's what it looked like he was doing. You're going to have Goombas, and you're going to have pits that kill the player. You're going to have an ending, and you're going to have Koopa Troopas. Because that's all that exists on the first level of the game. Oh, and a star. There's a star on the first level too. And then there's a transition to another area, the underground area. And that's it. That's 100% of the entire game of Mario for the first level. So that's all the things you'd have to make for your game if you're going to do Mario as your example. And the other thing is, for the first part, you're just copying the game. You're not supposed to do any work for gameplay, any extra gameplay, just what's there. You're not supposed to do any work for graphics, UI, menu, story, sound effects, or music. You're just doing the game for one level. That way you can focus on the creating a game and then not worry about anything else. Because the goal is to isolate the amount of things that you need to learn at one time. When you're making a whole game, you have to learn a lot of things all at once. So this is an attempt to reduce the amount of things that you have to pick up at once. And then also you're supposed to repeat, rinse and repeat and rinse and repeat for a few times. So for level 1 it's 5 times, level 2 is 4 times, level 3 is 3 times, and level 4 is 3 times also. No, you would choose a different game and do the same thing from scratch. So if you did Mario the first time, you could do Duck Hunt the second time. Because I don't think Duck Hunt would fall under that. I guess it'd be an action. But Track and Field being a sports game, you'd have to wait until level 5 games are unlocked. If you're going to do the Nintendo Entertainment System triple game system game thing that we got. If you remember that. Yeah, so when it says choose a game from one, that's what it means. You go to here and you choose any games that fall under those categories or genres. And we should start this week. So you want to go look up a game that you want to do. Well, it's 2 weeks. Anyway, just choose a game. I think I'll go for Ninja Gaiden. I think for the first one, there's no like rush on anything, but should just focus on isolating all the game elements / features / whatever, and then just make a list of all those things and include AI of the enemies, and then I think that should be enough for the first 2 weeks. And I don't know where to put them yet. Just put them in a Google Doc, and then you can share them, and then we can put them in a. I'll put them in a folder on my side, and then we can just go through them whenever we want to convert them over into a database. As soon as we figure out that it has everything that we want, or not. And as always, you can always talk to each other and us and everyone in the Google chats for any help or whatever. That's not the way this works. That's the opposite of what this is for. That's the opposite of what this is for. No, it doesn't sound like it. So you can still work on any of the other games you want to work on while doing this, though. I don't think that's going to hurt too much. And if you've already got experience, this should take less time. But anyway, choose your engine, choose a game. The engine, I think, should be the same engine throughout the whole thing. But I think for the first one, it is. Gordon is always invited. He invites himself. we don't let our dog in this room. We have a kitty gate, and only Gordon can jump over it. Damn, where was I? Where was I? What was I talking about, Gordon? What was I talking about, Gordon? All right. If I think it's okay to shop around game engines to do one level of a game in one engine, and if you don't like it, choose a different game engine. But I think after level 1, you should be pretty set on which game engine you want to use. And I don't think anything has to be that rigid. That's why I'm kind of leaving it a lot of the options open. And the other major thing is it's not for sale. Because these are going to be like direct copies of games. So obviously for the first little bit they're not going to be for sale. But since they're not going to really have graphics, it shouldn't be a big deal to share them, as long as you don't sell them. Well, yeah. I mean, if you share them with just your group, it should be fine. If you share them online, even if you do it for free, they can probably do a cease and desist if you use graphics and gameplay. But if we're just sharing them in the group, it should be fine. Even if we use their same graphics, sharing them in the group should be fine. Just no public sharing. Well, I don't know. He did shut that down pretty quick. He made bank for about a month and a half, and then he just stopped selling it abruptly. We don't know what happened there. Yeah, he sold it for like $1 a piece, and then made like, I don't remember how much it was. It was in the tens of grands, the tens of thousands. Million? I don't think it was million. It was a pretty simple game. The guy had like hundreds of very, very simple games. And that one was just the one that took off. It's a bit like playing the lottery. You don't know which game is going to be successful. But I think if you try to get good at making games, once one becomes successful, they'll try to look over the rest of your games. Hey. And if those are also decent, then you should be able to get a few more sales. So I don't think you should try and shoot for the lottery of the game thing. I don't think you should shoot for the Flappy Birds. I think you should shoot for trying to make good software, good games, and build up a small library. And then when you become really successful, you have a whole bunch of things that people can go back to and like before they think you're a sellout. Because eventually, if you make money, people are going to think you're a sellout. Yeah, that's pretty much it. People are weird. Anyway, so I think that's it. You're probably tired, Joe. Yeah, people are weird. People are inconsistent. I like C# too. I use it for work. but I like Unreal Engine more than Unity. I'm not saying it's better, I'm just saying I like it more. There's a difference. Yeah. And you can do that stuff in Unity, but it's a little harder to get there. And it's better at 2D games. But Game Maker is better at 2D games than either of them. No, there's an RPG one. No, Game Maker is pretty much just a 2D engine. But there's an RPG Maker, and you can make RPGs in Game Maker. I think they have some projects set up for that by default. All right, so everyone sounds super excited. That does not sound fun. Yeah, should try and do 1 hour a day working on it. And for this stuff, well, I guess choose an engine first. Do you have any idea what engine you want? Alright, yeah, try Unity. And Joe can do Unity also. We don't have to all do the same one. And Unreal has extra wrappers that make it a little easier to use. If you're familiar with the kind of, if you're familiar with using wrappers in C++, they make it a little more developer friendly. If you're using Visual Studio. I think it's Microsoft's best product. And yeah, with C++ it's not that bad either. Yeah, we use it, that's our primary language at work. Ooh. Ew. Yeah, you have to get used to that. You can have pseudo multiple inheritance. You just have to stack them, and stacking them is annoying. Well, it makes it easier for the compiler and the debugger, and it prevents a lot of runtime errors. Just by doing that, you prevent a ton of runtime errors. But I don't know. I like multiple inheritance. It was awesome. That's the way everything is, though. I like to I like to follow a lot of the programming concepts, especially the modern ones. But I don't think anyone should be followed 100%. Yeah, right. One I really agree with is don't try to load data inside of a constructor. That's a I think that's a good rule to follow 95% of the time. Hmm. Code complete? No, I have not. I like Stack Overflow most of the time. All right. Let us know what game you decide to do, and engine. That's right. That's right. Where am I going to put this? Projects. We'll call it. Do a new folder. And call it the Pirates Group. Beauty. Alright, yeah, just let me know what engines and games you decide, and I'll put them in a document. Good night. Don't have my music loaded up, so we'll just stop.